I was really excited about building on just the characters. First time having a sequel to anything, being able to take these characters that we were so familiar with, that we built, Ryan and I built, the first time around, to see where Adonis and Bianca's relationship would go. Being professionals in their own right, wanting to have their own careers and passions, and how they would kind of meld together. A representation of our generation of being entrepreneurs and wanting to have their own and be their own person, but learning how to have love together as well and compromise. I thought was very interesting, and his evolution as a boxer. The first time, was more of an origin story. He had like a fight within himself to figure out who he was. So to see where he was years later, to see how that path would go, his relationship with Rocky, how that would build, how that would change and evolve. Yeah, there's a lot of things. This is a very layered film, with a lot of themes and a lot of things to kind of talk about. So I was very interested in seeing where that would go. Bringing back, Ivan Drago and his son Victor, and that storyline, that history, that animosity, into into Creed and Rocky, it just made it that much more intense. Usually in the world of boxing, they have, boxers usually have their sons, usually following similar paths. That's all they know. They grow up in the gym, they grow up around it. And so it was kind of natural that, just like I would be boxing after, Apollo, that Victor would kind of naturally box after, Ivan. So it was a natural fit, and everything just started to fall into place. That was, Sly's idea. And it was a genius one, so I think it worked out perfectly. He's huge. I was like, how am I, like, what weight class are we fighting in? How are we gonna do this? But we figured it out. I spent a lot of time in the gym, and I know he dropped weight as well, so we tried to meet in the middle a little bit. And he's a really, really nice guy, super humble, eager to work and learn. And we picked up chemistry really fast, in the ring with choreography and stuff like that. So we definitely started to get on the same page. And he brings a lot of emotion and a lot of range to this role. And it's a very layered performance by him from what I've seen and us working together. So I think he's the perfect person for it. I can't imagine anybody else playing him. He's a brother of mine now. Like you know, nobody knows what that feels like unless you're able to go through that process. Now, not just that moment, but I'm talking about just the training process, shooting these 12, 14, hour days, when you're boxing the entire time, doing choreography, taking punches, every day, limited amount of sleep, like you're going through an intense boot camp. It's something that very few people know what it's like. The stakes. It's like it's a loaded situation. Like the history between those two. I'm somehow caught up in between the both of them, and it's like, all right, mentor, coach, father figure. The guy who killed my dad, son of the guy who killed my dad. You know, just the whole triangle of us was was a lot of layers to kind of like fold into like moments of performance and character things, like just subtext, to have, and yeah, it made for some interesting moments on screen. So it was cool. As a fighter, they have a certain mentality. There's a certain fire that burns inside of them. There's a certain thing as a warrior that you can't, that I get in the ring for. That I have to, this is a challenge. I have to, there's certain things that, you know, that makes them want to fight. that's something that we really want to explore. That's not just a fighter fighting. It's really a team thing between everybody, between me and Bianca. We really want to get into that. But then also knowing, Danny, I don't know if this is the fight for you right now. You know, her knowing that, but couldn't really show him that because that's she's his support. You know, so that she's definitely caught in a lot of conflict, and I think she navigates it really well. There's some things in the little moments that human nature and just being real, we had to show that, you know, maybe some doubt on her side that Adonis might pick up and feel some type of way that might drive him deeper down that road of spinning himself. So that's definitely something that we wanted to get into as well. Rocky's on board, you know. His mom is on board, knows what he's doing. His wife is on board, you know. He has a daughter now, somebody who needs him, who he has to come back to because he's not going to repeat his father's mistakes. So he's kind of came to this understanding with everybody in a circle, and then it's a team. Like, everybody's fighting Drago, not just Adonis. And I think that's the kind of support that he needs in order to win. And if he loses, then he knows that it wasn't just him. He's not fighting alone. And I think that that's something really powerful. He's awesome. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those rare directors that you kind of have a real connection with, and is very well rounded. You know, he doesn't really lack. I mean, you know, from what I've seen and what I know, he doesn't really have any real weaknesses, which is amazing and very rare to say. And like, we all have weaknesses, but at the end of the day, you know, he brings something that's him. You know, independent filmmaker in a studio system that's making a real, you know, gritty, down to earth film that's real. You know, I think that's the thing. He makes the characters real, and that's something that you gotta applaud. Yeah, I can't wait for him to put his mouthpiece in, because he's gonna take some real punches.